Hello again, and welcome to Take Two. I'm very excited today to have a conversation with Ian Macdonald about the new marketing. Ian, so much of what we are accustomed to doing in real life has had to change and adapt, and I'm sure that marketing is no exception. So can we talk about what you're seeing in your business?
Absolutely. So, something that will be no surprise to anyone who may be watching this. A massive shift into a greater use of digital marketing techniques, the ability to connect with people when obviously for the last 2 years, connecting in person has been really difficult. So we've seen a whole lot of businesses really try to pivot their operation model or their operating model to one where they have a digital connection with all of their customers, digital connection with their supply chains. So obviously, because of some of those unforeseen challenges like a pandemic, a shift to creating virtual relationships with everyone has been a significant thing. That's kind of the communication channel side of it. The other side of it at the same time, I think, again, not brand new, but certainly more emphasized, is transparency, right? A greater shift into transparency. People want to know more about who they're buying from, or as much about who they're buying from as what the quality of the product is. So we see transparency and authenticity as a big shift, and then at the same time, a shift to a more virtual relationship with more customers.
Certainly, I have seen in my own business that a lot of the responsibility is now falling on the leaders, the CEOs, who normally there was the marketing and communications department, and they would take responsibility. But people don't want that now. People want to hear from the person making the decisions. Are you finding the same thing, that you're using CEOs more in marketing than you might have in the past?
Absolutely, we do. And we really try to get, that's part of the authenticity, and it's part of the transparency. People, we have the philosopher king model in most businesses, right? So people want to know what the philosopher king is thinking. That's the leader. So what do you stand for? What do you think is the greatest priority for your business? And within those confines, where does that leader stand on ESG scores? Where does that leader stand, environmental, social, etc.? So it's really important. And this may sound a little bit crass, but we also live in a time where there's a bit of a cult hero, right? People want to follow someone. They want that cult hero that sort of leads the charge for the business, and then they get to follow that person. So if you have a really effective CEO who can really speak, you want to leverage that. Right? I think that allows you as a business and as a brand to really connect with people. And obviously, the number one thing in marketing is your ability to connect with people, right?
So certainly I've noticed in my work in strategic communications and crisis communications, we certainly noticed that a lot of things have changed, but the basics, there are still a lot of best practices that we should be looking at today. Let's not abandon those just because the world has changed.
Exactly right. With a lot of our clients, I really try to simplify things because, genius is found in the simple, right? What is business at the end of the day? It is a value exchange system. So where I counsel a lot of our clients is specifically to say, if you start your day with the idea that I'm going to go generate profit versus starting your day with, I'm going to go create value, you'll find that the focus on creating value is the one that will generate the greatest profit, right? And you can apply that to everything. You can apply that to an employee and how they focus on approaching their day. If they approach it with the idea in mind that I'm going to create as much value as possible, then they will find the highest return on their energy. And same with a company. If I go out and I try to create value for my customers every day, they will come closer to me. Our relationship will be deepened, and inevitably it will lead to greater profitability for me. Those to me are fundamentals in business, and they don't change.
So while we're adapting, we're talking a little bit about the client side and the push out of marketing. What have you observed about the way audiences are receiving messages right now?
Right. I would say, again, not to be a fear-mongering person, but with a lot more circumspection, right? Trust is not won or given easily. And at the end of the day, everyone, not everyone, a lot of people are familiar with the Edelman Trust Barometer. Trust is really the driver of all transactions. It's the driver of all relationships. So the way people receive information now in particular is very different. Even if you look outside of marketing, I mean, marketing belongs and lives within the greater context of our world. And right now, there's a lot of distrust. A lot of distrust of media. There's a lot of distrust, particularly of media that is digital, because there are so many sources of information. So who do I trust? And if we accept the fact that trust is the driver of all relationships and the driver of all transactions, then you cannot live without it. You cannot grow without it. And so where you have a consumer audience who are really skeptical of most things that they hear, and particularly skeptical of marketing, right? Again, it brings us back to where we started, which is transparency and authenticity, because that will be trusted, right? And I think that's more difficult now, perhaps, than it ever was.
So you'll probably agree with this. A colleague of mine, Ken Coach, who does an awful lot of crisis communications and who I've interviewed in previous episodes here, Ken was saying not only is the public more, as you say, a little bit circumspect about what they're going to believe, but Ken said we're also so quick to demand punishment. We want to see that blood in the water when somebody that we supposedly have trusted suddenly missteps, that there's a real need for punishment. Are you seeing that?
Absolutely right. And you also, to take a positive spin on it, you also see the brands that are really intelligent. So the blood in the water is such a real thing, right? We want to see people punished for anything that they do outside of what we deem to be acceptable. But the really smart brands, again, won't be news to people, but the really smart brands are the ones that own it, act on it, and turn it around, right? Instantly. I don't know if you recall, I think it was just last year, probably the year before. Time's been a little bit
fluid.
Yeah, but just a couple of years ago, Kentucky Fried Chicken in the UK, there were a bunch of challenges with all their key poultry farms. So Kentucky Fried Chicken for the entire country in England was out of chicken. So what do you do when the one product that you sell is gone and you've got all these franchisees and I suppose customers that like it? What they did was they took their KFC logo and put the F in front of the C and K with a little asterisk and put out a full page ad in The Guardian that looked very much like a profanity, but using their logo and their typeface. And instantly they won acclaim and applause from not just in their country, but worldwide, for owning the fact that things had gone sideways and actually coming forward with a little bit of humor, but self-deprecating humor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And saying, we screwed up. What is it, how good is a chicken company who doesn't have any chicken? Right? So they just kind of nailed it. So public relations, again, it's an important part of maintaining a brand and maintaining trust, right? Own your mistakes, be forthright about them. And if you can throw a little bit, if you've got the courage to put a little humor into it, you're better off for that as well.
So much the better, yeah. So any other examples that you can point to during the pandemic where maybe somebody did a misstep or somebody did something really clever that you've noticed and went, wow, that was good?
Geez, off the top of my head, what have I seen that has really stood out over the past year?
Or things that were terrible? I noticed how the automobile manufacturers came out really early with these super emotional ads about we're here for you. And I mean, basically they were there to sell cars, but it was all about, we're family, we're here for you. I don't know if you saw those or what you thought of them. I was kind of scratching my head like, I'm not sure where this is going. Well,
it is an interesting thing. One of the trends that I have seen, which is interesting, and there are many positives within it as well. But if we look at the things that have happened in the last year or two, there has been a fairly significant amount of social unrest, if you will. So we have the Black Lives Matter protests against police brutality and violence, for example. Social issues, I guess, is really what I'm saying here. Social issues have come to play a significant part in what I see as effective marketing these days. So if you were to take, all of the advertising you saw, whether it was print or broadcast or social or digital, from 2 years ago, and then compare all the brands with what they're doing today, you will find such a remarkable difference, right? LGBTQ couples in every third ad.
Right. Yeah.
Actually inclusive. A real emphasis on diversity in terms of the actors that you'll see portrayed in virtually every brand, from cars to bread to banks. We can see that there is a significant shift by major corporations to demonstrate that they are forward thinking and that they are inclusive. I've found that to be really remarkable, really positive. You want to believe that there is a lot of authenticity in it and not sort of lip service. But I definitely see a significant change there. At the same time, this comes back to the sort of the UN sustainability goals and the ESG scores that most companies now focus on. So trying to get to being carbon neutral, for example, we're seeing that everywhere. Again, a significant change in how companies are managing themselves. Similarly, one big company after another saying we are going to divest of fossil fuels. So all of these things I think are happening together, and I think it is signaling a shift toward organizations being more progressive, right? And which is a very good thing. And again, hopefully that's not a trend. Hopefully that is a commitment.
And I certainly take your point that because there was a term around for a while back called greenwashing, yes, where everybody was wrapping themselves in the environmental flag without actually making any kind of a commitment, but it was all part of their marketing and their brand. So as you say, you're hoping that most of it is authentic, but we don't really know, do we?
We don't. No, we don't. And I'm absolutely certain that we'll find cases where it is not, where it is really truly is just lip service or trying to ride a train. Right, jump on board a bandwagon. But at the same time, lots of companies are saying we're going to take this seriously. We're going to move in this direction because the world depends on it.
And our audience is responding. Is the public responding to this new style of diverse messaging and inclusive messaging?
Yeah, I really believe so. And study after study after study. So one of the key things in marketing, as we all know, is really understanding your audience, right? So what is driving my audience, right? So when we do a customer journey for any of our clients, we'll start with building a persona. This is your customer, your ideal customer. What drives them? What are they thinking? What's going on in their lives, and what are their priorities right now? Because as a brand, we need to connect with them. We need to involve them, and we need to be trusted by them, as I keep saying. And so, in order to do that, I really do need to understand who they are, what their priorities are, what they're looking for, and where can we align with them. Right, which is a really important thing to do. So as we do that, we're finding that the brands we're working with are truly looking to connect with their customers, particularly when you speak about younger audiences. So as I was sort of referring to before, study after study after study shows with every new wave of young consumers entering the market, coming out of high school, coming out of college, etc., they have much more progressive views, much more inclusive views. They're significantly more concerned with the environment. So brands that aren't willing to meet them on that playing field are brands that are going to be left behind.
So in last question, for people watching this that are thinking about not necessarily their marketing campaign, but even just their basic communication, what would be the most important things you would recommend they think about? Yeah. Maybe they've got a draft of something or a message or a speech they're going to give. And what would be the most important things that you would say, think about this?
Yeah, honestly, if there's one fundamental thing that I try to share with a lot of our clients who are primarily small and medium-sized businesses, it's focus. There's so many shiny objects out there, and so many people that are going to call you and email you and bang on your door and say, you need to do this. It's going to be, and it's tempting because all of these shiny objects have some kind of validity to them. There's no doubt some benefit to be had in them, but what you end up doing is constantly chasing objects and not focusing on what you do best and focusing on fundamentals. And the fundamentals are, of course, transparency, authenticity, engaging your audience. And, forgive the cliche, but measure, manage, and improve. Those are just fundamentals. And you do that by focusing. If I may, I watched the PGA on the weekend, the PGA golf tournament that Phil Mickelson won.
Mm-hmm.
One of the really interesting things that I watched as he played was this focus that he has on meditation. So he would always, it's new to his game, right? And you could just see the breathing exercises he was doing on every hole before every shot, stopping, focusing, clearing his mind. Well, it's the same in really effective marketing. Block out all those distractions, focus on what you do best, communicate to the people that matter most to you, measure it so that you understand what's working, and continuously improve. Simple fundamentals.
That sounds fantastic. Ian, thank you so much for this, and have a wonderful day.
I sure will. My pleasure. Thank you.